Monk, you know that the priestly soldiers of Enryakuji Temple on Mount Hiei intervened in politics and colluded with the surrounding warlords to thwart the ambitions of our Oda family.
Dear Nobunaga, we are just trying to protect our place of faith. But why do you consider us such a threat?
Do you see them as a threat? Monks, your power is not merely a place of faith, but a political force behind it. It is an insurmountable obstacle to our cause of unification.
But we are also a center of culture and learning. Much valuable knowledge is gathered here.
Knowledge can be a weapon, depending on how it is used. The influence you possess could be linked to the rival Asakura and Asai. That is the greatest threat to the Oda family.
Dear Nobunaga, how are we considered to be involved in such political ambitions?
There have been moves by you to collaborate with Asakura and Asai. That is direct evidence. Under the order I am aiming for, such moves will not be tolerated.
It was only a kind of self-preservation, a way for us to live.
Even though it is in self-defense, your actions are a major obstacle to my Oda family. That is why I have decided to march on Mount Hiei.
Many innocent people were sacrificed because of it. What did it mean to Nobunaga Dono?
Monks, warfare always involves sacrifice. My goal is the unification of Japan, and those who stand in the way must be eliminated. That is the way of Oda Nobunaga.
Does the noble lord also understand that this sacrifice, however, means the loss of faith and culture?
We understand, but in order to establish a new era, the old order must be overthrown. The burning of Mount Hiei was a symbolic act of this.
By his actions, Nobunaga Dono made many enemies. Did you have any fear or anxiety about that?
Fear or anxiety? Monks, to follow my path, you must overcome your fears. Making enemies is inevitable, but if you are frightened of them, you will accomplish nothing.
That would be an expression of your strong will, Nobunaga Dono. However, what do you think about the impact of your actions on society?
Impact on society? It certainly had a significant impact. But it has also curbed the political intervention of religious powers and paved the way for centralization. That is the world we are striving for.
Does Nobunaga Dono accept that the peace that this world brings is based on many sacrifices?
Acceptance. Peace often involves sacrifice, but if that sacrifice brings future stability, it is worth it.
Aren't you afraid of how your decision will be evaluated by future generations?
The reputation of posterity? Time will decide that. I will simply follow the path I believe in. How it will be reflected in history, I leave to the judgment of future generations.
Nevertheless, the burning of Mount Hiei took many innocent lives. Do you have any words for that fact?
The loss of innocent lives was the sorrow of war. However, it was an unavoidable choice in the battle for peace under heaven. That was Oda Nobunaga's decision and fate.
Dear Nobunaga, the real reason for the burning of Mount Hiei was not just a political threat.
Well, then, monk, what are the other reasons?
Enryakuji certainly had political power, but it was intended to maintain stability and order in the region. This sometimes required cooperation with surrounding warlords, which may have led to misunderstandings.
You talk about maintaining stability and order, but your actions have hindered the progress of the Oda family. How do you explain that?
We have only been fulfilling our responsibilities as members of the community. However, the rapid expansion of Nobunaga Dono's power is an unknown threat to many of us, and a defensive reaction to it is also a natural human behavior.
Is it natural behavior? But if the result is resistance against our troops, it is an unforgivable act.
Nobunaga Dono, much learning and culture had been concentrated on Mount Hiei. Its destruction has resulted in the loss of more than just a political victory.
Whatever learning and culture there may be, if it is contrary to our political objectives, there is no other way but to eliminate it.
However, culture and learning enrich people's minds and also contribute to the prosperity of a country. The cost of destroying them is immeasurable.
A prosperous mind? The prosperity of a nation? If they nourish my immediate enemies, their value is also different.
Nobunaga Dono. Many of the monks and scholars on Hiei did not intervene in politics, but simply acted out of love for peace.
You say you love peace, but if that peace prevents my military action, it is my enemy.
So you consider all dissent to be an enemy?
If opposition blocks the path I should take, then yes, it is the enemy.
Such a mindset will not win the hearts of the people. A true ruler will win the hearts of his people.
The hearts of the people? Before that, we need the power to unify the country.
Power is not everything. Power without heart will eventually destroy itself.
Still, to survive in this warring world, we need strength.
Along with strength, compassion is also important. Without it, people will fall into despair.
Mercy. That's one thing. But there is a time and a place for showing mercy.
When will that time be?
That is when the world is united. Until then, decisiveness rather than mercy will be required.
Whether or not a decisive decision will bring about the right future, who knows?
Even if we do not understand, we must go on. That is the fate of warlords.
Despite fate, there is always a choice to be made. How we choose to do so shapes our history.
You're right. Choices make history. That is why I made a decisive choice.
Do you feel no responsibility for that choice? For the many innocent lives that were taken?
Much has changed since the burning of Enryakuji temple. But at that time, I had declared that my purpose was to remove obstacles to the unification of the country. How do we now see the impact of that action?
Certainly, the action was probably out of strategic necessity for Nobunaga Dono. But for us monks, it was a tragedy that we lost the center of our faith, and many innocent lives were lost.
We understand the pain of this. However, we had to take into account the risks of continued intervention of the monks' soldiers in politics. As a result, the subsequent political intervention of religious forces was greatly reduced.
Be that as it may, the cultural loss was also enormous. Many valuable documents and works of art were destroyed by fire, a major setback for Japanese scholarship.
This point is undeniable. However, the subsequent Japanese culture blossomed anew as the Momoyama culture after the unification of Japan. It can be said that the liquidation of the old created the soil for a new culture to emerge.
I acknowledge the birth of a new culture, but that does not change the fact that we have lost something irreplaceable.
At turning points in time, not everything is necessarily right. However, it is an accepted historical assessment that our actions accelerated the centralization and unification of Japan.
The peace that unification has brought is certain, but we cannot overlook the discord and rupture that it has created in the process.
All change comes at a price. That is the lesson of history. But if there is much to be gained from it, it should also be accepted.
Nevertheless, the emotional trauma caused by the burning is deep and continues to linger in the memories of many people.
History is always multifaceted. It is important to fairly evaluate all that our actions have brought about.
With that fair assessment, we must learn from this incident and gain wisdom to build a better future.
I agree with you on that point. Reflect on the past and apply it to the future. That is our role.
And we should always keep thinking about what lessons their past actions can teach us today.
Indeed, lessons from history are essential in shaping the future. Remembering this, we must move forward.
It is our mission to understand the power of a decision like Nobunaga Dono's and the weight of responsibility that comes with it, and to pass these lessons on to the next generation.
That's right. We should also learn from this dialogue how important our actions in history are.
We should then use what we learn to achieve a fairer, more peaceful society.
In building a new era, our past actions will feed us. It is my hope that a better future will be built thereby.
To achieve this, we must not repeat mistakes and must constantly evolve.
Through the ups and downs of history, we always look forward and move on. That is our path.
Within that path, there should ideally be a balance between a strong will like that of Nobunaga Dono and deep thoughtfulness like that of the monks.
We need both a strong will and deep thought. Only then will true peace be realized. On the day I ordered the burning, my heart was filled with conflict. The ideal of war under heaven and the reality that countless lives would be sacrificed. Was this the fate of a military commander?
When that order was given, we simply trembled with fear. The burning of the land of our faith, the loss of so many innocent lives. It felt like a betrayal of our faith.
It is understandable that you feel betrayed. But my actions are only to eliminate a political threat. In these times of intersecting faith and politics, it is difficult to distinguish between the two.
But Nobunaga Dono, it was not only seen as a political threat, but also as a treasure house of culture and learning. To burn it all down.
I also understand the value of its culture and learning. However, if it can serve as a backstop for hostile forces, it is contrary to the purpose of our unification.
How much sacrifice is justified for the sake of unification? Is that true unification?
Unification cannot be achieved without sacrifice. That is what history teaches us. But it is also true that the sacrifice is so great that it is sometimes heartbreaking.
As a priest, I sympathize with the pain in his heart. I have come to understand a little more now that I know what Nobunaga Dono is going through, but the sadness still remains.
I understand your grief, but I will be forced to make the same choice again and again in order to unite this country.
Yet, how do you compensate for the countless lives and cultural values lost by burning?
It is difficult to compensate. However, we can also create new value by building a new era.
Although we are building a new era, we must always be mindful of how our past actions will affect the future.
That's right. We will continue to carry the weight of what shadow our actions will cast on the future.
It is not easy to understand and bear that weight.
It is not easy, but that is the fate of warlords.
Is it our destiny as military commanders? Nevertheless, our destiny as monks is to uphold the faith and hope for the peace of mind of the people.
It is not that I don't understand that faith of yours, but we must not forget that it can sometimes be a political force.
It is not intended to be a political force. However, it is inevitable that we will influence people through our faith.
That influence sometimes stands in the way of our path. That is why we have come to a decision like this one.
Many things were lost by that decision. Do you have any regrets about that?
Regret. Yes, there is that. But regret alone will not change anything. We have to move forward.
It is important to move forward, but we must also constantly ask ourselves if the path we are on is the right one.
I will not fail to ask myself that question. That is the responsibility of a true leader.
We will see to it that they fulfill their responsibilities.
I would like to hear your opinion on how the burning of Enryakuji Temple worked as part of strengthening centralization in our policy.
Certainly, the action would have had the effect of concentrating power by reducing religious power, which was one of the most powerful regional forces. But it is also true that many cultural and educational resources were lost as a result.
Please elaborate on the cultural resources that were lost and the impact they had on society.
Enryakuji Temple possessed many classical literatures, Buddhist scriptures, and even Chinese classics. The loss of these to fire is a great loss to the study of Japanese scholarship.
I understand the loss of learning, but it could be said that a new culture sprouted from it. How do you see the Momoyama culture flourishing?
The rise of Momoyama culture certainly heralded the arrival of a new era. However, it was not directly caused by the burning of Enryakuji Temple, but was an inevitable consequence of the times.
Despite the trend of the times, the centralization of power had the effect of suppressing independent local forces and increasing the sense of unity of the country as a whole. What is your view on this?
Centralization has certainly made it easier to unite the country. However, it has also undermined the rich local culture of each region and led to a decline in diversity.
While it is an inescapable fact that diversity has declined, the united policy has helped to stabilize the country. How do you see the economic impact of this?
In some respects, domestic stability stimulated economic activity. The development of commerce was particularly remarkable, as exemplified by the development of Osaka by Toyotomi Hideyoshi in the Azuki Momoyama period.
The development of commerce also contributed, in part, to the increase in domestic productivity, which in turn increased the country's strength. But what is your assessment of the social disparities that resulted?
Certainly, economic development has increased national power, but at the same time, the concentration of wealth has increased, and the gap between the rich and the poor has widened, which cannot be ignored. This could be a cause of social unrest.
There are many factors that give rise to social unrest, but a strong central government was still necessary to eliminate them. What do you think about this point?
While it is understandable that a strong central government can bring a certain order, it is also true that many local voices were left behind in the process. The balance between local autonomy and central power should have been questioned.
Balancing local autonomy with central power. That is certainly an important issue. But sometimes strong decisions had to be made. I think the burning of Hiei was a necessary part of that. What do you think? Many years have passed, monks. Now, the burning of Mount Hiei is a thing of the distant past.
Nobunaga Dono, time flies. However, the memory of the burned Enryakuji temple still remains vivid in our hearts.
I understand that sentiment. However, at that time, I thought that all obstacles should be eliminated to achieve the great goal of unifying the country.
Even if that was the way of Nobunaga Dono, many innocent lives were lost. Do you have any thoughts about that?
There is much to think about. Warfare always involves sacrifice, but even so, the burning of the city was too severe.
Just to hear you say that is a bit of a relief to us. But why did you go to such extremes?
At that time, it was necessary to eliminate the forces that would consolidate the power of our Oda family, and that would be a major barrier to unifying the country.
But that led to an act that also destroyed the place of faith and learning.
That's right. One sometimes wonders later if there might have been a different approach.
I am a little relieved to hear that. So, Mr. Nobunaga, if you had the same situation now, how would you handle it?
Now, maybe they will try to have a dialogue or compromise. With time, people change their minds.
I am glad to see that you feel that Lord Nobunaga is changing.
But it is also true, monks, that the decisions you made at that time played some role in building the leveled world we live in today.
That may be true, but it is also true that we have lost much in the process.
I feel responsible for that loss. That's how I feel now.
Thank you for your sincere words. Dear Mr. Nobunaga, would you like to think about how we can cooperate with each other for the future?
That is a good suggestion. If only we could overcome past grudges and build a new relationship.
Start with mutual understanding and trust.
That's right. We need to join hands with each other for a new era.
I have learned a great deal from today's dialogue. Dear Mr. Nobunaga, I thank you from the bottom of my heart for giving me this opportunity.
Monk, thank you, too, for the opportunity to reflect on the past and discuss it with you in good faith.
We will continue to cherish the lessons we have learned throughout our history.
Hopefully, the lessons learned will guide us into the future.
Thank you, dear readers, for listening to our discussion.
I would like to take this opportunity to thank all of you for your interest in our history and dialogue.